Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 21 based on novel. So let's start. As nightfall came falling from the sky, a dark and gloomy color covered the heaven and earth. Under the influence of the darkness, the yuan power between the heaven and earth turned violent at the same time. On a mountain range that was within a short distance from the Wanxiang city, there was a bonfire ongoing. 3 figures were seated silently beside the bonfire. Even though continuous howls of demonic beasts could be heard throughout the night, their faces remained serene and did not reveal even the slightest bit of nervousness. The 3 figures belonged to the Lindong trio, who had been traveling unrelentingly from the northwest region in a hurry to the Wanxiang city. As the distance between the northwest region and the Wanxiang city was very long, even if the Lindong trio maximized their speeds, they still required nearly 5 days to reach this place. At our current rate, we can reach the Wanxiang city tomorrow, Lindong smiled while stretching his back beside the bonfire. Little Flame nodded his head. Little Martin's face remained lazy-looking. He raised his eyes and took a sweeping glance at the surrounding darkness and said, "This time around, I can't sense anyone following us. It appears that 2 fellows have retreated. Reportedly, there are members of the super sect standing guard in the Wanxiang city. I guess those fellows of unknown origin do not dare to get near to us," Lindong laughed plainly. Little Martin nodded his head while leaning against a huge tree. At this point of the night, the yuan power between the heaven and earth was getting rather rampant. The earth began to tremble and frantic howls of demonic beasts rushed forth the sky. Indistinctly, one could see the notorious demonic horde scrambling over the mountain range. However, no matter how enormous the demonic horde was, there was not a single demonic beast within 100 feet of the Lindong trio. Even the demonic hordes that were surging through mountain range seemed to avoid their location intentionally. It appeared as though there was something they feared in this area. With the both of you here, it's more than enough to induce fear in those demonic hordes. Lindong could not help but chuckle when he saw this scene. Little Flame possessed the bloodline of the heavenly devil tiger tribe, while Little Martin had already regained the physical body of a celestial demon Martin. Such unique display of might was enough to keep those demonic hordes away. During the past 5 days of hasty journey, they practically did not meet any obstruction and were even relaxed. It has been quite a while since they last enjoyed such a carefree sensation after entering the ancient battlefield. Right now, beside Lindong, Little Flame was starting to become increasingly outstanding, while Little Martin had regained his physical body and his powers were recovering steadily. Both of them were powerful enough to take care of themselves. Therefore, Lindong no longer need to go through great pains and carefully strategize on how to handle various powerful enemies of his own. What kind of demonic hordes are these? If you can enter the demon city, you will see what the genuine surging demonic hordes are all about. Little Martin curled his lips and said, "Demon city, huh? If there's an opportunity in the future, I definitely want to go there and experience it," Lindong chuckled. He was rather curious about that mystical and unfamiliar region. It's not an easy task to enter the demon city. Separating the eastern Xian region and the demon city is a chaos demonic sea, which is so huge that one will not be able to fly over. Even when I am at my peak, I need to remain highly cautious when I cross the sea, Little Martin explained. Chaos demonic sea. Lindong muttered. For some reasons, he found it somewhat familiar. On the map that you obtained in the Yang City's symbol Master Tower, there was a location of the second piece of ancestral symbol being marked on it. That is where the Chaos Demonic Sea is located at, Little Martin continued. At this moment, Lindong suddenly understood something and smacked his lips involuntarily. The second ancestral symbol. There were 8 ancestral symbols in total. He did not know what type of ancestral symbol was that particular piece. It had been quite long since the day Lindong obtained the devouring ancestral symbol. Without possessing the powers of the devouring ancestral symbol, it would be very hard for Lindong to achieve his current status within 1 or 2 years. Thus, he developed a strong interest in this kind of godly artifacts like the ancestral symbols. Among the 8 ancestral symbols, other than the devouring ancestral symbol that you have, I have also seen a guy who possessed the blazing ancestral symbol. Phew, that guy is an exceptional and ruthless individual. He is able to evaporate an entire river with a flip of his palm. During those days, I have been taken advantage of by him numerous times. That guy was a top-ranking entity in this heaven and earth. You might have the chance to meet him in the future, little Martin reminisced. Blazing ancestral symbol, a look of novelty flashed across his eyes. Clearly, he was rather curious about it. How powerful would that kind of ancestral symbol be? There's no need for you to envy him. The devouring ancestral symbol is the most mysterious symbol out of the 8 ancestral symbol. Naturally, there's something powerful about it. It's just that your capabilities haven't reached that level yet. Therefore, you are unable to fully unleash its potential, little Martin explained lazily. Lindong nodded his head slightly. Even though he was curious about the ability of the blazing ancestral symbol, he was not drooling or lusting over it. He knew the principle of not biting off more than what he could chew. Currently, he could not even fully control the devouring ancestral symbol. If he was lucky enough to obtain another piece of ancestral symbol again, it would be hard for him to master it as well. During that time, he might hurt himself instead. Upon seeing Lindong expressing understanding towards this matter, little Martin did not speak anymore. Then, he put his fingers into the bonfire and played with a wisp of fire boringly. After a moment, his fingers suddenly trembled and his eyebrows folded slightly. At the same time, Lindong and little Martin sensed something as well. They raised their heads and looked into the darkness of the jungle ahead of them. There seemed to be a sound of urgent footsteps coming through the darkness. Lindong's and little Martin's facial expressions did not have much changes. Little Flame's hand slowly slided down and grabbed the black-colored metal pole beside him. The bonfire was surging. After a short while, 3 figures walked out of the darkness. The first one was a wild-looking male, whose body was rather muscular. Following behind him were 2 girls. One of the girls was wearing red clothes. Her slender and seductive body possessed an arousing curve in the darkness, and her face was extremely beautiful as well. Even though she could not be compared to Mu Hongling, she was still considered as a fine beauty. Behind this girl, there was a teenage girl who was dressed in green. Her face was rather exquisite. Within her big and jet-black eyes, there was a lack of maturity and experience that Lindong was familiar with. Instead, her eyes seemed to contain a tinge of timidity. Lindong shot a glance at the 3 persons. His gaze stopped at the green-clothed teenage girl for a while. Then, his eyes drooped slightly and he did not express much interest in them. My 3 friends, our path has been blocked by a demonic horde. We chose to retreat to this place as we saw a bonfire here. May we take a short break here? The wild-looking man cupped his fist in courtesy and asked after scanning the Lindong trio carefully. No, you may not, little Martin replied coldly as he raised his eyes. He sensed something troublesome about these 3 persons. You? Upon seeing little Martin's rudeness, the red-dressed girl's eyebrows flared slightly. Just as she was about to say something, she was being stopped by the man hastily. The man appeared wild-looking, but he was extremely meticulous in his actions. In this dark night, the whole mountain range was filled with demonic hordes, and yet, this place was oddly empty. Even those demonic hordes did not dare to get closer to this place. Even though he was not sure of the exact reason, he did not dare to slight these 3 extremely young-looking men. Since this friend does not want to be bothered, we will leave this place, the man gritted his teeth slightly. He was rather decisive as he turned and prepared to leave. Beside the man, the green-dressed teenage girl bit her lips lightly, and with a tinge of fear in her big black eyes, she looked at the Lindong trio and asked shyly, 3 big brothers, we will not disturb you. We will only be resting beside you for a while. Once the demonic horde leaves, we will leave as well. If you are not satisfied, we can offer you some nirvana pills as remuneration. Fine, give us 2 million nirvana pills, little Martin replied indifferently. Upon hearing these words, that green-dressed teenage girl's face flushed with embarrassment and her big eyes became teary unexpectedly. Even little Martin was surprised at this sight. Those who made it to the ancient battlefield were considered the best in their respective empires. This small girl's behavior stunned him. My brother is merely joking. The three of you come and have a seat. Lindong, who was playing with a wisp of fire all along, suddenly raised his head and smiled kindly at the three-person. His gaze was fixated on the green-dressed teenage girl most of the time. His gaze contained a unique tinge of gentleness. This teenage girl reminded him of the lass back at home, Ching Tan. He wondered how she was doing now. Upon seeing Lindong opened his mouth, little Martin did not say anything else. Among the three of them, the wild-looking man was the most powerful. He was at most a 3-yuan nirvana stage practitioner and could not pose any threat to them. Upon hearing these words, the three persons were clearly elated. After a slight hesitation, they walked toward the bonfire and sat orderly beside it. "My friend, my name is Suko. This is my sister, Suru." The wild-looking man cupped his fists toward Lindong and pointed to the green-dressed girl. Then, he pointed to the beautiful red-dressed girl. "This is our companion, Liu Ya." After the wild-looking man finished his introduction, he then scratched his head and continued, "We are from the Great Qing Empire, a middle-ranked empire, he. Upon hearing these words, Lindong was slightly happy. This fellow was rather simple-minded. By introducing himself, it meant that they were not dangerous. "I'm Lindong. These are my two brothers, Lin Yang and Lin Jiao." Lindong laughed as he ignored little Martin, who was rolling his eyes furiously, and gave him a surname. After all, he could not introduce them to other people by calling them Little Flame and Little Martin. "We are from the Great Yang Empire, a low-ranked empire." Upon hearing these, the Suko trio was stunned. An unbelievable look flashed across their eyes. It must be that they never expected the three mysterious individuals in front of them were from a low-ranked empire. "Brother Lindong, you are really from a low-ranked empire?" The teenage girl, whose name was Suru, could not help but ask while raising her big black eyes. When Lindong saw cute facial expression, he smiled slightly. After fighting with so many people in the ancient battlefield for nearly 1 year, he did not have a peaceful conversation with someone like now. Following which, he nodded his head and sliced a piece of meat from the roast meat in the bonfire and passed it to Suruo. Then, he laughed, "If you're not afraid of me poisoning you, eat some and fill your stomach." Hearing these words, Suru's face blushed. After thanking Lindong with a soft voice, she reached out her hand. At the moment when she reached out her hand to take the slice of meat, her fine fingers accidentally touched Lindong's hand. Upon that point of contact, Lindong's facial expression suddenly changed slightly. An indifferent little Martin, who was beside Lindong, squinted his eyes as if he sensed something as well. The glowing embers leaped and twirled, their faint red light illuminated Lindong's face, causing the shadows on his face to appear a little deeper. He merely glanced at Suru's immature and attractive face for a moment, before nonchalantly withdrawing his gaze. Though he appeared calm on the surface, Lindong was slightly troubled inside. In that split second he had come into contact with Suru's finger earlier, he had distinctly felt an extremely terrifying yuan power undulation within the girl's body. This undulation was much stronger than even his own and was extremely well hidden. Lindong was sure that the portion he had sensed was not in its entirety. That is to say, this girl, who looked about Qingtan's age, had a frightening power hidden within her body that even he could not match up to. Lindong's lips pursed slightly as his eyes involuntarily turned toward Suru, who was currently happily enjoying the roast meat in her hand with unconcealed glee on her face. He was somewhat unable to imagine that this adorable girl was someone who could mask herself so well. Lindong casually offered the roast meat to the Suko duo before exchanging a look with little Martin. He knew that little Martin had astonishing senses and would definitely have sensed something earlier. When little Martin saw Lindong's gaze, the former covertly nodded his head, indicating for Lindong to be a little more careful. Among the trio, the Suko duo were nothing to be worried about. However, this girl called Suru was someone even little Martin could not get a feel of. If her naiveness was merely an act, it would mean her acting skills were truly superb. Even someone with Lindong's character had manifested good feelings for her. Little Flame clearly did not know what the Lindong duo had discovered. However, given his understanding of the two, his keen senses told him something was up and his oppressive figure immediately leaned slightly forward, like a vicious tiger that was about to pounce on its prey. Thank you, big brother Lindong. Suru finished off the roast meat in her hand and wiped off the bit of oil on her tiny rosy lips before blushing as she revealed a sweet smile to Lindong. Lindong faintly smiled in response, his gaze lowering to stare at the rising flames. After some silence and after the Suko duo had eaten their fill, Lindong slowly asked the trio, given younger sister Suru's strength, the demonic tide in the mountains shouldn't be much threat towards all of you, right? As Lindong's words faded, the atmosphere practically froze in an instant. Suko stared at Lindong in shock, while Suru's pretty face paled as her body involuntarily shrunk backwards. Little Martin and Little Flame were momentarily stunned at their response, a little baffled inside. What do you know? Suko's expression fluctuated for a while before he suddenly stared at Lindong and asked. My mental energy cultivation is somewhat passable. Hence, I am able to sense the enormous power hidden within her body. I am not interested in where you come from, but I do not plan on being the target of someone else's scheme for no reason. In the ancient battlefield, you should understand my cautiousness. Lindong replied in an indifferent tone. You believe that we have a hidden agenda? The lady in red angrily said. Then what would you have us believe? Little Martin sarcastically replied. Who would not be on guard when a group of unknown origin suddenly approaches them at such a time? Even more so when one of them possesses a formidable strength, yet pretends to be a frail little girl. Suko's eyebrows tightly knitted together, his expression fluctuating. By his side, Suru still gave off a shy appearance, her huge eyes tinged with a little redness as if she now understood that Lindong and the rest were suspicious of her. The fact that the three of you believe that we have a hidden motive is normal. Suko's expression finally ceased fluctuating and helplessly said as a bitter smile surfaced on his face. Brother Lindong's senses were indeed spot on. My little sister's body does indeed contain an extremely powerful strength. However, that power does not belong to her. Well, more accurately, it does not belong to her for the time being. Little sis is very talented and she is the most outstanding in our great Qing Empire. However, her character is too weak. Truth be told, she is not suited to this place. Suko stroked Suru's tiny head as he bitterly explained. Some time ago, we mistakenly entered an ancient territory. Originally, we were under the impression that we had came across some kind of treasure inheritance. However, in the end, we did not find anything at all. Of course, we did not leave completely empty-handed. Our only reward was little Ru unintentionally opening a seal and drawing a long-lost power into her body. Lindong was dazed. Moments later, he regained his wits as his face involuntarily tightened for a second. He had struggled to the death and endured so much pain just to increase his strength a little. Yet, this Suru had unfathomably opened a seal and obtained an enormous power that even he would have trouble facing. Little Martin frowned as he stared at the shy Suru as if in thought. That power is both very mysterious and tremendous. Thus, we are completely unable to probe it while little Ru is also simply unable to control it. Of course, we know that this power is still considered something good. As long as this power stays with little Ru, she will eventually get used to it over time. Yet, who would have known that we would be targeted by some people after obtaining this power, leaving us no choice but to flee? What happened today was mostly due to us being chased to this place and we definitely harbor no ill intentions towards you. Suko bitterly said. However, the three of you need not worry. We will not cause trouble for you and we will leave immediately when the demonic tide retreats. As he observed the apologetic look on Suko's rough and wild face, Lindong once again looked towards the timid Suru while the latter stared back with a slight trace of fear in her eyes. It was likely that she was scared by him earlier on. While being stared at by her in such a manner, Lindong could not help but release a pained laugh, as if he had done something wicked beyond redemption. Ha ha, it's all right. This guy is just too paranoid. He has been cheated too many times in the past and thus, he will become extremely sensitive whenever he encounters such a situation. The one who had suddenly spoke was little Martin, who had been somewhat in opposition of the Suko trio from the start. However, wide and extremely warm smile had now appeared on his handsome face. Lindong gazed at the brightly smiling little Martin, both angry and amused at the hat that little Martin had placed on his head. However, Lindong did not say anything. He understood little Martin's character extremely well. This fellow was crafty without equal and would absolutely not do anything that was not beneficial. The fact that his attitude had shifted so rapidly meant that he must have discovered something. In response to the previously extremely cold yet now extremely welcoming little Martin, the Suko trio were caught off guard and could only awkwardly look towards Lindong. They could tell that Lindong was the heart of this trio. If I was a little too paranoid earlier and I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. Lindong clasped his hands together towards Suko and said. When faced with an enemy, Lindong could become rather vicious, but this did not mean that he was an unreasonable person. Brother Lindong is too polite. We are already very grateful for being able to avoid the demonic tide here. Suko hastily said. At this point, Suru clearly breathed a sigh of relief. She sat down beside Suko but kept her distance from Lindong, her huge eyes sneaking a look before hastily shifting away. This little girl's attitude made Lindong feel a little happy. He had been stretched taut in this ancient battlefield for too long, and this was the first time he had seen a naive girl like Suru. If I am not mistaken, the enormous power that had suddenly appeared in her body should be a spirit emblem left behind by a powerful practitioner. This thing has its advantages and disadvantages. However, if it is truly able to be controlled, it can indeed allow one to reach the sky in a single step. But if it not, mind will be secretly invaded by the power within the spirit emblem and be completely taken over, like the turtle dove that occupies the magpie's nest. Little Martin suddenly remarked as he played with a wisp of fire. When his words sounded out, the Suko trio's expressions changed drastically. Evidently, they had never imagined that this kind of power would be so dangerous. I hope that this little miss will be able to control this power on her own. This can be said to be a gargantuan opportunity that others would seek but never receive. After all, there is no free lunch in this world, everything comes with a price or a risk. Little Martin indifferent said. I will control this power. I will protect my brother and elder sis Liu Ya, so they will not have to continue fleeing. Suru lowered her head and declared as she bit her lip. Lindong and little Martin were slightly stunned, obviously not expecting that this weak-natured girl would possess such inner strength. The night enveloped the land as the flame soared into the air like a warm halo that wrapped around everyone and fended off the cold and gloomy darkness. As time passed, the darkness finally retreated. When a thread of light appeared in the horizon, the berserk yuan power of the land once again regained its calm. Brother Lindong, many thanks to the three of you for last night. We will not stay any longer, so farewell. Beside the dying embers, Suko gazed at the now bright sky as he sighed in relief before solemnly clasping his hands together towards Lindong. Without wasting any more time, he turned to leave. Big Brother Lindong, Big Brother Lin Yang and Big Brother Lin Diao, we are leaving, so please take care. Suru blushed as she waved her little hands at the Lindong trio. Her innocent appearance caused even the heartless little Martin to involuntarily shrug his shoulders. After the Suko trio left, the Lindong trio remained seated by the dying embers. For the time being, they showed no signs of leaving. They've been obstructed. Little Martin suddenly said from out of nowhere. Lindong gently nodded his head. That little girl's potential is not bad. If nurtured, her accomplishments will not be low in future. Such a good sapling, it's a pity if anything happens. Little Martin continued. Lindong rolled his eyes at little Martin as he casually threw aside the wooden stick he was using to prod the soil. To one side, Little Flame grabbed his black metal rod. Let's go. All along, the number of people we have offended is too many to count, but we have yet to save anyone out of kindness. This time, let's make an exception. Lindong stretched his back as he slowly stood up. On his face, a brilliant yet cold smile appeared. A wild and violent yuan power explosion suddenly sounded on the main road between some lush green trees. The enormous trees collapsed and a figure shot backwards in a miserable manner. That figure rubbed on the ground, forming a scar that was dozens of meters long. Only then did he violently collide onto an enormous tree. Immediately, a trace of blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. Big brother. That figure landed on the ground in a miserable manner. Two figures hurriedly flew over to the fallen man, with an anxious expression on their face. Liu Ya, protect little Ru and go. That man, who was forced back in a miserable manner, suddenly recollected himself. At this moment, his face appeared quite pale. He forced himself to stand up and shouted at the two women beside him. The two people standing beside him were naturally Su Ru and Liu Ya. They looked at the injuries on Su Wang. Their pretty faces were a little pale as they did so. Ha ha, I have wasted quite a lot of time dealing with you. Everything will likely end today. However, a soft laughter suddenly sounded within these woods, just when Su Wang cried out. Immediately, numerous sounds of wind being torn apart were emitted from around the place. 5 black shadows appeared on a large tree in front of Su Wang's group in a ghost-like manner. Their eyes looked down from above, appearing to contain a teasing expression like that of a cat playing with a mouse. Yang Mo, you should not be too overbearing. Su Wang's expression immediately changed intensely as he cried out, after seeing the 5 figures that had appeared. You can only blame yourself for taking something that you should not take. How can a mere middle-rank empire enjoy such an inheritance? A man in black robes, who appeared quite cold, was at the front of the 5 black shadows. He smilingly stared at the furious Su Wang as he laughed sinisterly. Hand over your sister and we might grant you an easy death. That man who was called Yang Mo spoke indifferently. In your dreams? Su Wang clenched his teeth. He endured the intense pain being emitted from his body as he maneuvered his yuan power. Su Ru's beautiful large eyes hurriedly became teary upon seeing this manner of Su Wang. She knew that the strength of the 5 people in front were extremely strong. Amongst them there were 3 people who had advanced into the 3 yuan nirvana stage. With Su Wang's strength alone, he was definitely no match for them. He would really be killed by this group if he continued to act brave. You've got backbone. However, such a person is destined to have a short life. A ferocious smile was slowly lifted on Yang Mo's face. In the next instant, his body wildly rushed forward. Fierce and uncontrolled palm wind directly covered Su Wang, appearing just like a storm. Su Wang hurriedly slammed his palm on Su Ru's body beside him after seeing that Yang Mo did not show any mercy. He pushed the latter away before his yuan power swelled. A fist was thrown forward, colliding head-on with that Yang Mo. Boom! Yuan power violently overflowed from the point where the palms made contact. The fallen tree leaves on grounds around them were instantly blasted into powder. Wild and violent wind directly forced back both Su Ru and Liu Ya by the side. The already pale face of Su Wang became even uglier as the wind swept. Their footsteps stumbled backwards as they spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Clearly, their injuries were quite serious. Yang Mo did not show the slightest trace of stopping, even after having injured Su Wang. A killing intent flashed across his eyes as mighty yuan power agglomerated at the tip of his finger. It appeared just like a sharp sword that penetrated toward Su Wang's throat with lightning-like speed. Big brother. Su Ru's pretty face changed a little upon seeing this scene. Her small lovely body actually rushed out in a flash and directly blocked in front of Su Wang. She was quite strong but her character was a little delicate. Hence, her aura was halved when she saw the ferocious expression of Yang Mo. What a touching scene. However, I do not know how to treat a girl nicely. Yang Mo merely smiled in a dense manner upon seeing that Su Ru had courageously stepped forward. His eyes did not contain even the slightest mercy. Instead, it held a kind of perverted joy. The yuan power on the tip of his finger became increasingly sharp as they pierced toward Su Ru's beautiful face. Little Ru, get out of the way. Su Wang hurriedly shouted from behind upon seeing this scene. His expression immediately changed drastically. Su Ru's small lovely body trembled slightly. Her large eyes contained a fear that could not be hidden. She merely bit her lips as she focused intently on the increasingly close sharp finger wind. In the next instant, an extremely majestic yuan power suddenly erupted from her body. The offensive ripple that was created by the yuan power directly sent Yang Mo flying. However, this kind of strength was clearly not something that Suko was able to completely control. Her entire body had trembled intensely after unleashing and withdrawing it. Is that the power that you have obtained from the sealed territory? It is indeed very strong. It is really wasted on you. Yang Mo's toes pressed gently in the air. Only then was he able to resolve the impact. His eyes contained a fiery hot greed as he stared at Suko. He immediately waved his hand. Attack together. Capture this girl. Yang Mo's cry had just sounded when the eyes of the four, who had yet to attack, instantly turned cold. They did not utter even the slightest nonsense as their bodies rushed out. Their attack was well coordinated as their aura surged and directly sealed the retreat path of Suko. Vast and mighty ruthless Yuan power swept toward Suko like floodwaters. Suru's face became even paler as she watched the fierce and ruthless attacks that came pouring down like a storm. The actual strength of her body was merely at 2 Yuan Nirvana stage level. Other than on some occasions, the great strength within her body was also beyond her control. Therefore, she really had nowhere to run in the face of the combined attacks by these 5 people. The eyes of Wang behind immediately turned red upon seeing the predicament that Suko was in. His heart wanted to charge forward, but the churning blood within his body caused the Yuan power within his body to circulate extremely slowly. All he could do was to watch the numerous merciless attacks approaching Suko. Just as those sharp attacks were about to pour over Suru's lovely body, however, an ear-piercing rushing wind sound suddenly appeared. A black shadow rushed out from the forest in a ghost-like manner. After which, he appeared in front of Suko. Bright golden glow erupted at this moment, transforming into a circular golden light barrier. Boom boom boom. Wild and violent attacks ruthlessly smashed onto the golden light barrier, forming numerous rapid ripples. The wind swept apart in an untamed manner. However, no matter how intense the ripple was, the gold-colored light barrier still firmly guarded the 2 figures who were within it. The glaring golden light caused Suru's beautiful large eyes to narrow involuntarily. Soon after, she saw the figure that was standing in front of her. Under the shining golden light, this back did not appear to be very strong. However, it contained a pine-like straightness. That manner was as though this backbone would be able to endure it even if the sky was to collapse. This was the first time in so many years that Suko had discovered a straight and firm back that was similar to that of her big brother, who had been protecting her. However, why was it that this back appeared a little familiar? The golden glow gradually became dim. Finally, it completely disappeared. That young figure finally turned his head over and smiled towards the young lady behind. His tone was warm. You all right? Big brother Lindong? Suko was startled as she looked at the gentle, brilliant face. Immediately, she nodded in a helpless manner. Her large eyes turned aside in panic and her face became much redder almost instantly. The light became dimmer as Yang Mo's group watched. Their eyes immediately turned cold when they saw Lindong, who had appeared in front of Suko. Their tone was dense as they spoke. Where did this ignorant fool come from? He actually dares to intervene in our matter? So many people bullying a little girl. One's face should not be this thick, right? Lindong raised his head, looked at Yang Mo's group and spoke with a faint smile. Yang Mo's eyes were deep as he stared at Lindong. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly as he slowly said, "This friend. Perhaps you ought to inquire about the background of our Windcloud Empire before you think about being a hero and trying to rescue a beauty, no? A super empire, huh?" Lindong's eyebrows were lifted for a moment upon hearing this name. Clearly, he was a little surprised. Brother Lindong, this Windcloud Empire is extremely strong. We are already extremely grateful that you are willing to lend us a hand. I, Wang, do not wish for anything else. I only beg that you can bring little Ru and leave. Your big favor is something that I will never forget. I will block these people. Wang hurriedly cried out. He was also surprised that Lindong had intervened. These people in front of them were all quite strong. Moreover, he was aware of Lindong's strength. However, as long as he could get Suko to escape alive, it was worthwhile to Wang even if he was to end up dead in this place. I do not wish to leave. Big brother Lindong, thank you. However, you should all leave. These people are very strong. Suru shook her head and said, I have never done anything meaningless. Lindong smiled as he flicked a finger on Suru's clean forehead. After which, he turned his head and looked at Yang Mo's group. He said, sorry, but it is likely that I will have to take these 3 people away with me today. Are you certain that you possess this qualification? Yang Mo parted his mouth and spoke in a dense manner. Lindong gave a half smile as he stared at Yang Mo. He slowly nodded, I think that I do. Yang Mo's eyes instantly turned cold upon hearing this. When he was about to attack, however, he suddenly felt his heart turn cold. He could only see 2 figures on a large tree behind Lindong. These 2 figures were looking down from above. Their eyes contained a fierceness and playfulness as they stared at Yang Mo's group. That kind of gazes was no different from how they looked at Su Wang's group earlier. Finish them off. Lindong smiled as he looked towards Yang Mo. Within Lindong's eyes, a cold light gradually gathered. Soon after, his hand fell as he softly said. Immediately, killing intent spread outwards. This video will end here.